When we hear about a terminal medical diagnosis, the story almost always follows a predictable path. We expect frantic attempts to cross off bucket list items or desperate battles for experimental treatments. The reality is usually an exhausting biological fight that consumes every available ounce of human energy. In September 2023, a systems engineer named Lev Goukassian received exactly that kind of diagnosis. For nearly 2 grueling years, his body endured cycles of chemotherapy and the relentless physical toll of hospital visits, steadily draining his physiological reserves. In August 2025, his meticulously kept logs reveal a sharp pivot. He terminated all medical interventions, defining the move in his notes as a deliberate reallocation of resources. By treating his failing health as a cold systems engineering problem, he made a calculated decision. Shutting down the fight for his life allowed him to instantaneously reclaim 100% of his remaining biological processing power. Think of it like the battery on your smartphone. When that indicator drops to a critical 1%, you don't load up a heavy application. You immediately force close everything running in the background and dim the screen to absolute zero, just to conserve enough power to act. For Goukassian, the transit to medical appointments, the physiological recovery from side effects, and the emotional labor of hoping for a cure were just background apps. They were actively consuming his finite energy. He effectively put his own biology into maximum battery saver mode. He diverted all his remaining cognitive capacity toward a single objective, authoring one final, vital piece of code before his system completely shut down. Curious, this raises a heavy question. What exactly was a brilliant systems engineer building that compelled him to willingly accelerate his own death just to finish it? Standing exactly on the threshold of death strips away the invisible architecture of fear that governs our lives. Society completely loses its leverage over you. You can no longer be threatened with financial ruin, the loss of your career, or the punitive consequences of prison. This diagram outlines 2 psychological states: absolute freedom from fear and complete freedom from ego. He shed the desire to leave a personal legacy. At the top, the text highlights a complete indifference to personal cost. Without fear or ego, he achieved pristine clarity. Shedding those human vulnerabilities gave him the ultimate competitive advantage. It allowed him to engineer a flawless, uncorrupted mechanism designed purely to protect future generations. He directed that clarity toward our digital infrastructure's fatal flaw. This chart breaks down the binary world or metal vault approach. Modern corporations lock proprietary algorithms inside black boxes, prioritizing binary speed and commercial secrecy while hiding structural flaws from the public. To build a counter-system, Goukassian faced an immediate physical problem. A dying man cannot manually type millions of lines of code, so he utilized distributed AI agents to execute the raw, heavy labor. In this illustration, you can see how Goukassian operated at his desk. He functioned as a conductor for the glowing AI models surrounding him. He wrote the overarching sheet music and set the structural, philosophical boundaries, while the machines played the instruments. Outsourcing the typing and debugging preserved his rapidly fading cognitive energy. It allowed him to maintain a highly elevated, untainted vantage point over the entire digital landscape he was trying to fix. The result of that labor is detailed in this governance matrix. He created Ternary Logic, which runs on the principle of the glass vault. As the right column shows, this enforces total structural transparency, making it mathematically impossible to hide malicious code in the dark. The core of this logic is the sacred pause. Goukassian spent his final months alongside his schnauzer, Vinci, seen in this photo. He observed that the dog conserved energy by refusing to bark at every uncertain shadow, acting only when the source of a noise was clear. This architectural blueprint illustrates how he encoded that exact biological hesitation directly into silicon. The center line, state 0, represents a mandatory epistemic hold. The system is physically blocked from executing any command until it can mathematically verify the truth. In our current ecosystem, we view delay as a failure. In Goukassian's architecture, deliberate delay is the mathematical proof that the security protocol is actually working. He knew his creation faced one inescapable vulnerability. This diagram maps out the bus factor. If Goukassian left administrative control to a human successor, that heir could eventually succumb to greed and lock the glass vault back up for profit. To prevent that, he utilized an immutable ledger. As this schematic outlines, he took his foundational rules, the Goukassian vow, and hard-coded them directly into the hardware states. He essentially poured cryptographic concrete over the entire operating system. Then he executed his final masterstroke. He legally refused to appoint any heir. By entirely removing human succession, he permanently decentralized the system's authority. No tech monopoly can buy it out, and no intelligence agency can seize it. Eventually, the scale of what he built triggered alarms. Corporate executives and intelligence operatives finally tracked down the physical location of the architecture, arriving in a black convoy to negotiate control over a system that would render their secretive networks obsolete. But as this photograph captures, they found a calm man sitting in the sun with his dog. The visitors possessed zero leverage. They could not threaten or buy a man who had already scheduled his own departure. Without raising his voice, Goukassian delivered a quiet, final statement to the assembled cowards of the binary world. I built the architecture. The burden of ignoring it belongs to you. Goukassian utilized the final 6 months of a terminal countdown to finalize an architecture where doubt is the primary safety mechanism. With his own name decentralized out of the foundation, he left behind a protocol that forces systems to verify the truth before they are allowed to act. We are left with the burden of deciding whether we are brave enough to adopt it.